I struggled quite a bit in Ore Factory Squad until I started to understand what the game actually requires from you. At first, it seems like simple mining, setting up your base, and gradually improving. But in practice, any wrong decision ruins everything, and you quickly lose control. After making many mistakes, testing different things, and finally getting the rhythm down, I put together 10 advanced tips that really made a difference for me, and I believe they can help you too. So, come along with me, I'm Matthew, and the video is starting now. When I realized that production keeps running at night, it completely changed the way I plan my day. Instead of closing everything and waiting for the next cycle, I started accepting contracts at the end of the day and letting the factory run on its own. It's like turning dead time into passive profit without extra effort. The secret is to prepare the base well before nightfall. If your machines, robots, and production lines are organized, you can maintain a constant flow while you are not actively mining. This creates a very good sense of progression because you wake up in the game with processed resources and contracts practically underway, instead of starting from scratch every time. After you unlock offsite workers, the system scales for real. Hiring workers to mine in locations like Pinnerage means you receive resources without needing to be there. It's like having a second operation running in parallel, while you are free to focus on more complex things within your own base. And that is exactly where this strategy shines. You use this time and these extra resources to invest in more advanced production, like cement, bricks, or gravestones. While the workers take care of basic collection, you level up your economy with more valuable items. When all of this clicks, the game stops being just active mining and becomes intelligent management of time and systems, where each cycle yields much more than the previous one. Look, I'll be very honest with you. The first thing we want to do when we find a pile of ore is sell everything in bulk and fill the cash register. It's almost a reflex, right? That pile of resources sitting in the factory seems to scream to be turned into immediate cash. But in Ore Factory Squad, this impulse is exactly what can screw up your economy in the medium term. Stock sales exist to solve a specific problem, not to be your main income. Here is the detail that took me a while to grasp. When you dump everything onto the market at once, the price of that item plummets. It's that old rule of supply and demand working at full force. Flooding the market is the same as adding water to whiskey. It dilutes the value of your own product. Therefore, stock sales are emergency tools. Do you need to pay a bill now? A maintenance cost that can't wait? Fine, sell then. But doing this every week is the same as cutting the branch of the tree you are sitting on. The smart move is to invert this logic. Contracts should be your stable source of income. That foundation that you know will come in at the end of the cycle. And what is left over, that excess that doesn't fit in the contract, you save on pallets calmly. Think of these pallets as an ore savings account, not as dead stock. In the next round, when the price goes up, or when a better contract appears, you already have the merchandise ready to negotiate at a fair value. It's like aging wine. Time and patience are part of the profit. The big deal, and this separates those who are surviving from those who are dominating, is to keep an eye on the computer. The market inside the game is alive, and the price fluctuates. Before confirming any sale, take a look at the numbers. Sometimes waiting a day or two on the game calendar makes the difference between a mediocre profit and cash that will fund your next expansion. Ultimately, Ore Factory Squad is not just about digging deeper. It is about seeing the value of what you have already pulled from the ground. This is one of those tips that seems simple, but when you actually start applying it, the game's pace practically changes. Stopping the random digging and starting to use the ore detector with intent makes a massive difference. When you define exactly the resource you want to find, you stop wasting time on useless ore and start playing much more strategically, almost as if you were reading the terrain before even clearing a path. Now, the real trick for me was changing the way I dig. Most people start by digging downwards, almost on autopilot. But when you switch to lateral digging, exploring left and right, the game seems to reward that directly with more damage and speed. In practice, you open up larger areas in less time and can follow ore veins much more efficiently, without getting stuck in vertical holes that only delay your progression. Another detail that seems minor but has a high impact is carrying multiple pickaxes. I tested this extensively, and the balance of 3 to 4 pickaxes works very well. You don't get stuck in the middle of exploration, and you don't waste inventory space that could be filled with valuable resources. It's the type of optimization that doesn't stand out at first, but eventually you notice how much it improves your game flow. And once you unlock the digging speed upgrade, everything clicks. The increase in hole size completely changes the feel of mining because you start clearing entire veins much faster. Combining this with the detector and lateral excavation, you practically enter a much more efficient farming mode, where each expedition yields much more than before. It's the type of mental build that separates those who just play from those who actually master the game system. If there's one thing I learned the hard way, it's that stairs are the silent enemy of your efficiency. In the beginning, we think that climbing up and down with ore in hand is part of the game, but every one of these trips is time and money burning away. When I stopped accepting this as normal and started treating the mining lift as an absolute priority, the game moved up a level. Build mining lifts early. Don't wait for the mine to become deep and chaotic. The moment you have the resources, plant the lift and use crates and pallets to send the ore straight to the surface. You don't carry anything. You throw the ore into the system and keep mining. It seems like a detail, but it's the difference between looking busy and actually producing. Another rule I follow without exception: clear the entire layer before going down. Don't go down a bit, come up, and go down again. Finish the level, clear what needs to be cleared, and only then go deeper. Each trip up and down the stairs has a cost, and in deep properties, this cost multiplies in an absurd way. You feel it in your pocket and in the rhythm of the operation. When you apply this properly, throughput easily rises 2 times or 3 times in deep mines. This is not an exaggeration. It's the type of tip that seems obvious once you use it, but most take a while to adopt because they get stuck in the just one more trip cycle. Stop climbing stairs, set up the lift, use the crates, clear the layer, and let the mine work in your favor. Negotiating aggressively is not just an option, it is almost mandatory if you want to grow fast. I always start by offering between 100 and 300 below the asking price, and most of the time, the game accepts or counters within a still advantageous margin. If you accept the first price that appears, you're basically leaving money on the table for no reason. Regarding properties, there is a very clear progression that many people ignore. Backyard properties are perfect at the start, cheap, accessible, and already give you a solid base to start farming and turning over money. Now, when you start aiming for quarries or snowy mountains, the game moves up a level. The investment is higher, but the quality of the ores compensates, provided you have the structure to exploit those places well. Otherwise, it becomes a high cost with no return. In contracts, that is where you can extract even more value, and few people take advantage of this properly. Always negotiate the final value because it is surprising how much you can raise it, about $100 to $200 more per contract without much effort. And this adds up quickly. Instead of taking any contract, I started filtering better. I focus on those with high payment and a comfortable deadline, because this gives you the freedom to mine efficiently without rushing. And the most important thing here is to understand the long-term impact. Well-paid contracts do not affect the market price like stock sales, so you keep your economy stable while profiting more. When you combine good negotiations with smart property choices, the game begins to flow in a much more strategic way. You stop just surviving and start really scaling within the game system. Stop carrying ore by hand. In Ore Factory Squad, this is not early game. It is a habit that stalls your factory before it even grows. I learned this the hard way when I still thought automatic logistics were mid-game material. They aren't. If you want real throughput, the layout must be born automatic from the first serious setup. The base is simple and cheap. Place a pallet at the output of every machine, without exception, then connect with $10 conveyors and $25 splitters to send the flow to the right place. It seems like a small detail, but it's what takes you out of the role of carrier and puts you in the role of someone who only decides the material's path. The real leap comes when you unlock warehouse robots as early as possible, around $800. Configure the drop zones and let them do the heavy lifting. While you were expanding the mine or solving another problem, the line kept running. In runs where I delayed this, the factory would stop the moment I left the area. And the layout decides if all of this works or becomes a bottleneck. Plan in a straight line or in a U-shape. Avoid crossings, avoid dead ends, and avoid that pile of crates in the middle of the path. When the flow is clean and the robots know exactly where to drop, the operation scales on its own. You stop chasing the ore and start commanding the factory for real. If there is one thing I learned, it's that the order of upgrades completely changes the rhythm of the game. Starting by investing in pickaxe and digging speed is the most solid path, because it accelerates everything that comes after. You mine faster, collect more resources per run, and basically multiply your efficiency from the start. Skipping this step or delaying this upgrade is that mistake which seems small, but keeps you one step behind. Soon after, the backpack upgrade acts as an essential supplement. It's no use mining fast if you need to return to the base all the time, because the inventory is full. When you increase capacity, each expedition yields much more, and this starts to provide that good feeling of continuous progress. It's the moment the game stops being fragmented and begins to flow for real. The turning point for me comes when you enter the automation part with the warehouse robot and more sorting outputs. Here, the game practically transforms. Instead of doing everything manually, you start building a system that works for you while you focus on mining and expanding. Only then does it make sense to invest in the forming press and stone crusher, because you already have a constant flow of resources entering and being processed. Only after all of this do I think it is valid to go for heavier tools like the jackhammer and dynamite, always carrying 5 to 10 dynamites per run to accelerate the clearing of large areas. And finally, investing in increasing contract capacity and hiring workers closes the cycle, because you scale your operation for real. The most common mistake here is spending early on cosmetics or large expansions without having basic automation. This only delays your progress and completely breaks your economy's efficiency. At first, I saw Dynamite only as a tool to clear areas quickly, but when you understand its true potential, it becomes practically a profit machine. Using Dynamite in chain explosions not only saves time, but also opens up much more space at once, revealing veins that you would likely take much longer to find by digging by hand. The most important detail is to start paying attention to the rocks with that white stuff. That is practically an invitation to open caves, and many people simply ignore it. But when you explode these areas, you usually find much richer veins than normal. It's the type of discovery that transforms a regular run into an extremely profitable collection without needing to change much in your route. After you unlock this part of the game well, carrying between 5 and 10 dynamites per session becomes almost standard. It's not an exaggeration, it's optimization. You start planning your explosions, creating sequences, and clearing large areas much more intelligently. And the most interesting thing is that this doesn't just accelerate farming, but also significantly increases the amount of rare resources you find. Now, when you combine this with the jackhammer in the deeper layers, the game practically enters another level. You use the dynamite to clear the path and reveal the terrain, and the jackhammer to finish quickly in the densest points. This combination makes your exploration much more aggressive and efficient, and that is when you start to feel that you are really mastering the game's system instead of just reacting to what appears in front of you. Playing Ore Factory Squad in co-op seems simple at first, but when you really organize the roles, the game becomes something else. It's not just everyone mining together, it's dividing functions as if it were an operation. When you put 1 or 2 players focused only on mining, with one using the detector and the other taking care of the lift or dynamite, efficiency skyrockets. Each does their part better, and the team stops getting in each other's way. What surprised me the most was the impact of having someone dedicated only to the factory. While the rest are out there collecting, this person keeps everything running. Machines, organization, robots, production flow. This avoids that classic bottleneck of returning with resources and having no structure ready to process them. It is literally transforming the game into a well-coordinated production line. And having someone focused on trucks, contracts, and negotiation is another level of strategy. This person can optimize earnings in real time, choose better contracts, and even negotiate values while the rest of the team continues producing. Since upgrades are shared, any well-made decision impacts everyone, so this role ends up being much more important than it seems at first glance. Now a detail that seems silly but saves runs: communication and forklift use. Using voice and pings makes everything much more fluid, especially in moments of pressure, and the forklift isn't just for cargo. You can carry players and make quick rescues when someone falls, paying that $100 fee, which, honestly, is cheap compared to the time lost. When the team fits all of this together, the co-op stops being casual and becomes an extremely efficient operation. In Ore Factory Squad, each property has layers with different percentages of resources, and anyone who ignores this is burning a plot out of ego. I've gotten stuck digging the same terrain just because there was still ore, while the contract asked for something else. Result: lost time and mediocre profit. Use the computer. It is the tool that shows what is still left in the plot and stops you from guessing. Before going down another layer or opening another hole, check what is really there. When you see the terrain's inventory, you stop mining in the dark and start making decisions based on data, not a hunch. And here is the rule that separates an efficient run from a stubborn one. Don't exhaust a property if the contract needs another ore. Change plots. I took a while to accept this because it gives that feeling of leaving value behind. But value left on the ground doesn't pay for contracts. If the order is for copper and you are saturated with bronze, the right move is to switch terrain, not force what doesn't fit now. Deeper layers are where the game starts to pay for real. The deeper you go, the more valuable. Bronze, copper, iron, and later, gold. But depth without tracking is just an expensive hole. When you cross multi-layering with constant reading of what is still left in the plot, the mine stops being a labyrinth and becomes a system. You choose where to dig, what to extract, and when to abandon. And that is what multiplies the return.